Hey folks, today we're covering Tinto Talks 66, and today Pavya's going to be talking to us about the Islamic religion group. We've had Christianity and Buddhism already covered, so let's just get straight into it. You can see here immediately the Islam religion group. This includes the following religions: Ibadism, Shiism, and Sunnism. I do apologize, I'm going to butcher so many names again today. I do try my best, but you can see here they're listed there, and then a little bit of history around this. As with all of these dev diaries, everything you see is work in progress. That is UI, art, balancing, all that kind of stuff. This is just our initial look at it. And the first one of these religions is going to be Sunnism. And you can see it here with some of the bonuses that you get. So slaves working with raw materials, yes. Religious figures allowed +1. They're going to talk about that later on. Trade efficiency +1. Ban imports of wine, liquor, and beer. That obviously fits the religion, and that is represented in the game as well. Allows piety to impact country, and allows religious schools. They're going to talk about that as well before we are finished today. You can see there's currently 32 million people who follow this religion. Egypt, Morocco, Tunis being the top 3. And the next one we're going to cover is Shiism. Very, very similar. The army morale +5%, replacing that trade-related one. All the rest of the impacts, though, are the same here. That is currently followed by 5 million people. Mecca being the top one, obviously a very important site for this religion, and that is also the largest one in this version of the religion. The last one here is Ibadism. This again, very similar. This time you've got trade advantage and shipbuilding speed, replacing those previous 2 bonuses. Outside of that, though, everything else is the same for this version of it. And currently at the start of the game, there's only one country that follows this. That is Oman, and that has 23,000 people. The next thing they're going to show is the religion tab under society. If you are playing as one of these realms, this is what you will see. Obviously, primary religion, Sunnism, the language being Arabic, and then religious unity, a lot less than you see Christianity at the beginning. Conversion rate, holy sites, tolerance, heretics, and heathens. Exactly the same as we've seen for the religions, just obviously different numbers there, depending on which one you are playing as. You can see our current school is Hanafi. That is going to be talked about in a second. And then, as they said, piety takes a much more important role in this. So that is also called out there. Now, the next thing is religious figures from other schools. Again, they're going to talk about religious figures in a second. And then, as we've seen with all the other religions, there are some religious actions you can take. So you can call a holy war, you can gain manpower, you can improve stability, you can go on pilgrimage, and you could also change that main school. And what is that? That's actually a mechanic coming back from EU4, but it has been reworked for EU5. As we've seen with a lot of mechanics, getting that little bit of a change here. So the Holy Scripture may be infallible, but distinct schools of thought have been developed on how laws and norms are best aligned with it. And then you can see one of them here, the Hanafi one, which is the one that was in the previous screenshot. This will give you max literacy for clergy plus 10%. And then all the other schools, you can see they are currently kindred. I guess that can change depending on how far you splinter out from it. I'm not sure. It doesn't really talk about how the kind of like kindred side of that does change. But they do say here, as we saw earlier, you can invite these scholars from the other schools into your kind of realm, I guess, and you get events around that as well. And then as we also saw, there are religious figures, and the breakdown here is that a religious figure is a character that travels the earth, bringing religious bonuses to places they travel. They can be hired by countries of the appropriate religion, although they can only follow one religious school directly. We can invite religious figures from other schools to give us some benefit. And then it does also say they can be scholars or gurus. They don't talk about gurus here, but they do show scholar, a learned individual and knowledgeable about Muslim law. They debate the principles of jurisprudence and the theology of Islam. They're going to talk about jurisprudence in a second as well. And then as they mentioned, these characters will travel around the Islamic world, and you can see one here. You can invite this chap into the realm, and it will give you stability investment reduction 0.03, or I guess you get more stability for the same investment. And then efficiency of cabinet 25%. That is a really nice bonus. You want to get this guy into your realm as soon as you can. And then blocked from rulership, yes. So he can't take over your realm, I guess. And then as previously mentioned, you can invite these scholars, these gurus from different schools of Islam. And once they are in your realm, you can change your religious school to match what they have. It does show in this example, it's 70 stability. So that is very expensive to do. But you are able to do that. If you get one of these figures to join you, you can say, okay, I prefer your bonuses, or I prefer your version of this. I'm going to change my school over, and then I guess they'll like you that little bit more as well. You can see another example of that here, the Atari Religious School, stability investment 0.03, and then their view of other versions of this. You can see this one actually has kindred and enemy versions, so you want to make sure you're bringing the right kind of person into your realm. The other version of this might not look so nicely upon you, so you do have to be careful about that. If you do make the change, you get this nice little pop-up, and you also gain some piety if you do this. They're going to list out here all the different schools. I'm not going to read all of them, but there are currently 10 Sunni ones, 11 Sufi ones, 8 Shia ones, and then 1 Ibadi one. It actually says that is only for this version as well. You can't kind of share it with the other ones as well. And then the main currency, as they showed, is piety, and that is returning from EU4. Let me know what you think about this. Do you like that this has come back? It looks kind of like it did in EU4. They've obviously changed it a little bit. Like most things, this works in a scale from -100 to +100, and that is coming over here. That will represent the mysticism to legalism respectively. This will give you scaling benefits depending on where on that balance you are. And then as you've been able to see, that is on the screen at the moment. So if we have 0 piety, we would gain 10% clergy estate satisfaction equilibrium, 10% more research progress, and 10% efficiency of our cabinet. And that does scale with piety. So we don't know how much this scales. So if you were at 100 piety, does it go up to 100%? Probably not. I imagine this scales up to maybe like 35-40%. I can't imagine it goes much higher than that. And then if you have less than 100 piety, you get clergy estate satisfaction plus 10%, so kind of the same thing anyway. And then the army morale plus 10%, and then population conversion speed plus 10% as well. And again, that scales with your piety. And piety will be modified towards one extreme or the other, mainly through events. Unfortunately, they don't show us any of those events, which is, as I said, unfortunate. It would have been nice to have seen some of those in this dev diary, although they do say there are some other ways to move it positively towards one direction or the other, including privileges and cabinet actions. Another important thing they wanted to call out here is that inviting of scholars that we were talking about earlier. You need to be leaning towards mysticism to be able to do that. So if you're on the other scale of things, you can't invite these scholars. I guess that makes sense, you know, leaning towards one way, you're more open to listening to the schools, I guess. And if you're more the other way, you're going to be more interested in focusing in other things from your religion. And then next, they're going to show off some of those abilities we saw earlier to spend your piety to get benefits. A country can exchange piety for either stability or manpower, and each of these require 50 piety towards either direction, moving the value 40 towards the center. So this will kind of bring you back to the middle of this kind of swing of which version you are. The first one they're going to show off is gain manpower. Now, I think there's a mistake in this tooltip. Well, there obviously is. Gain manpower in exchange for increasing our piety. That should obviously say decreasing our piety. Now, this will give you 200% of your yearly income as manpower. So in this example, it's 1,900, and this will cost you 40 piety. Let me know what you think about this. I've seen some feedback that the version of this where you can just press a button and get manpower isn't that fun, and it wasn't that fun in EU4, but it has come back in pretty much the same way here. So let me know what you think in the comments down below. Do you like this ability to just press a button and get a whole stack of manpower? I guess you can't spam it that much because you've got to have a lot of piety to do it, but it is a bit weird. You could press a button and just get some manpower. The next one is improve stability in exchange for decreasing our piety. So they've done it right this time. Gain 20 stability, cost 40 piety. Again, not a massive fan of these actions where you can press a button and exchange piety for stability. It's something they seem to have gone away from a lot in EU5, but weirdly for this one, it's kind of back in its old style way. Let me know again what you think in the comments. Next, they're going to talk about holy sites. Obviously, they've been covered in other religions, and they are obviously back for this one as well. So you can take some actions related to these. Performing a pilgrimage will also give you some piety, as well as sending your ruler on a holy journey to them. You can see there's the Caves of the Patriarch, the Holy City of Jerusalem, and a bunch of other options as well. And for this one, you would get 10 piety, and you will go on pilgrimage for 1 year. I imagine you get some events whilst you're out on there as well. Next, they're going to show off some of the laws and other aspects of the Muslim religions. The first one is the Iqta. Again, I apologize for probably pronouncing that incorrectly. In this example, though, you can see the active policy is tax farming. This will give you a state satisfaction equilibrium -5%, tax efficiency +5%, and then monthly progress towards capital economy 0.10. And then, as you can see further down, there are some other options for this. There's the tax farming one they have here. There's also a version of taxation, land acquisition, and then lenient taxation as well. And you can choose between these depending on what you're wanting to do in your campaigns. The next one is the Nikah. This is a policy in the marriage law. This will give you maximum amount of female spouses +4, and then for male spouses +1. The next one is the Sharia law. This is available in the legal code law. This is a policy. Clergy power +25%, pop conversion speed +10%, and then tolerance of heathen beliefs -1%. So you can implement this one as well. And then they say here, if you implement this law, you actually unlock an additional law as well. The Sharia jurisprudence, they're going to show this off as well. This will give you trade efficiency +2.5%. And then you can see there's a whole big list here of different versions of this you can implement. And this is a special version if you do have that Sharia law implemented as well. You kind of get this as an additional version of this if you do want to. And then to end off the dev diary, they're going to show us some of the unique buildings. The first one is the madrasa. This will give you clergy food consumption plus 10%, pop conversion speed plus 10, max literacy plus 5%, tribesmen to peasants plus 10%. So that's an additional bonus to the conversion, but it only affects tribesmen to peasants. So that will get your like lowest tier, I guess, of people, promoting that a little bit faster as well. The next one is the Sufi Lodge. This gives you max literacy for clergy plus 10%, clergy food consumption plus 10%, pop conversion speed plus 10%. So as we've seen with a couple of the other ones around religions as well, give the clergy more food, they're going to get smarter, and then they will convert people as well. And with that, that is the end of the Islamic Religion Dev Diary. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. Let me know if there's a specific country you're going to play as for this, and if you like the changes here from EU4 to EU5. They do say here, as we already knew, on Friday, we're going to be hearing about the Ottomans and the rise of the Turks, which kind of links into this quite a bit, so it'll be interesting to see all the events in there maybe that they didn't show in this one, but we'll find out more about that on Friday. So make sure you're subscribed. We can talk about that, see what they're going to talk about on Friday, and obviously all the future dev diaries up to the release of this game. I also cover Crusader Kings in a very similar manner if you do like the way I cover these, but we'll leave it there for today, and I'll see you all next time.